Let's bring in Bruce Curlock. Bruce, every Oilers prospect will be in Bakersfield or in 2 years. Was that dumb of me to say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure it was. I mean, that said, I sat on a draft tweet about Carter Savoie and whether his next contract would be in the Swiss League for about 3 months. So, we're all prone to those weaknesses when we see what's going on there for sure.
Sometimes they get a little frustrated. I'm an emotional guy, Liam. The Oilers came through with a nice victory last
body
night.
Language is good, though.
4-2. I said it feels like classic Oilers. They sleepwalk their way into a hockey game and then just find different spurts to turn on the Jets. What did you make of that win last night?
So I have a slightly different take on that. I didn't think they really sleptwalked into the game. I actually just thought they made a committed or they committed to trying to play a low event game is what I thought out of the first period. To me, I just looked at it and said, given the last few games, it didn't shock me that they didn't try and push the pace. It didn't shock me that they tried to take a lot of chances early on. To me, that's what it looked like more than anything. And really, I was more disappointed, I thought, in the first part of the second period, but prior to that penalty kill, because they had gotten themselves back into the game off that terrible Dubois play. And I thought they would have had a little more momentum, a little more push coming out in the second period. And then, they didn't. And really, it was the penalty kill more than anything that I thought got them fired up. But I thought that the first period was actually very intentional by them. And let's be honest, LA, the way they play the game, it's never going to be a high event 60 minutes, I don't think.
I would hate to watch LA Kings games on the regular.
I would hate to be a Kings fan.
Like, I hate watching the Oilers play the LA Kings in the playoffs because it's just an absolute snooze fest. It was like, we're just going to block you out of the zone for 60 minutes.
There was a point yesterday they had no one forechecking. It was a 0-2-3 or something in terms of the way they were playing. But
I wanted to ask you about Savoie, Bruce. You mentioned him kind of off the jump there, and we all saw the overtime winner that he had the other day. And he seems to have come a long way in the past couple of weeks. What's kind of changed the most in his game?
So I have a speculative take on this, and I have a real take on this. The speculative take is I think he's healthy, and I'm not convinced he was healthy for some time. He certainly wasn't healthy last year, and he had a little bit of a lower body issue at the start of this year too, or at least early in the season. So, but he looks healthy to me more than anything. In terms of what you see on the ice, you see like he is really quick right now, like far quicker than he was last year, which again, that's a relative thing to the injury. But even to the start of this year, he looks incredibly quick out there. The other part of it, I would say more than anything, is just a level of assertiveness that didn't exist before. He's a tough player, right? Like he is, I would say he's really cerebral as a player. I think some people look at it and say, he's lazy or he doesn't want to get involved. I don't quite think that's the case. In fact, I know that's not the case. I think he's just a really cerebral player. He knows when to attack, when not to attack. He knows when his skill sets can make a difference, and he knows when he needs to back out. But that said, he certainly is more assertive, and it's translating into some really good results. And the big thing with him, up until the last couple of games, he was stuck on the fourth line for a chunk of time. They had the Petrov group, Savoie line go, and then of course both Petrov and group got hurt, and then right back to the fourth line, and he was making an impact on the fourth line. And that is a huge thing in my opinion.
The narrative around him of being lazy has always been there, even when he was in Sherwood Park. Yeah. Like, Well, he
Yeah.
has 60 goals this season, and he's doing pretty, not in Bakersfield, but in Sherwood Park. It's like, maybe he just knows when to use his energy correctly and, when to be an impact player, like you said. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is it's obviously silly season. And every single trade we have, we're sending Broberg somewhere, we're sending Borgo because we think they're the only players in Bakersfield with any value. You think there are pieces in Bakersfield that would be of value to other teams if they were to be involved in trades?
Outside of those two?
Outside of those two, yes. And Lavoie maybe too, I suppose.
Well, Lavoie is, I think, for sure. I think part of the issue with Lavoie is I'm not sure. I appreciate that he went down through waivers at the start of the year or early in the season. I'm not convinced he would clear waivers this time. If he had to clear, so he would be in there. I think Olivier Rodrigue would absolutely be a trade piece. I don't. He's top 10, top 7, I think, if I remember right, in save percentage in the AHL. He's a little on the undersized side, but structurally, technically, when I talk to guys who know this position far better than I do, they're actually chomping at the bit to see what he could do in Edmonton. So I think he's a piece for sure. I'd have the opposite take on Borgo. I don't think there is a market for Borgo. At least not one in which you're going to get something back of. I mean, maybe it's sold as much like the Ekholm deal was sold as 2 first-rounders, one of them being Reed Schaefer, who I was never fond of as draft pick. Maybe someone else sells it as, well, we get the 2024 plus Xavier Borgo. It's like getting 2 firsts. I don't think he has a big market. There's lots of work to be done there. He's either hurt or he just needs a restart. But other than Rodrigue, it's fairly slim pickings. Warner, I think, would be an interesting prospect for other teams, but again, he's so young and he's so raw. You're not, you would look at it from an Oiler perspective and say, look, if this is what we're going to get for him, let's keep him. I really like him as a prospect, but he's just, I don't know that he would jump up in somebody else's organizational meetings as to somebody they'd want or overpay for.
Let's talk a little bit more deadline, but in terms of what the Oilers could be sending out, let's talk about what they could be bringing in. Everyone's starting to get their guys. We're 10 days away from the trade deadline or 11 days away from the deadline. We've become a Chris Tanev show at some points, and we've cooled at some points. We were a Boone Jenner show for a while. We're maybe on the fence about being an Anthony Mantha show, really trying to decide if we want to push that. But who are your guys at the deadline that you look at and go, whether they're the big names or maybe someone lower down on the list, some check down options? Who do you like out there that you think could make a good impact on the Oilers?
Yeah, so I'm going to be boring again and just go back to what I said before, which is Tanev. I just don't understand how that isn't the best fit for this. He's going to have the most impact. Everybody talks about Darnell Nurse needing a better partner. I agree with that. He would be an excellent partner. The other thing he's going to do, he's going to shore up the penalty kill, which, it runs hot and cold. So to me, he's still the guy. Given that it appears he's a rental type situation, I think that fits the Oilers better in terms of what they can do on an acquisition cost basis. The other player I do like is Anthony Mantha. I saw him out. I think I can't quite remember who it was, but somebody was throwing around Dowd's name, and I started looking at that team, and if you wanted somebody, and I'm pretty certain that Mantha plays the right side as a left shot. Boy, I'll tell you, if you can make the money work, which is an issue, he checks a lot of boxes. That some commentators speak about in terms of areas of need. I really like him. I think he would fit. The only issue you'd have is he's slower of foot, and this team is not exactly a speed demon of a team. So there's that, but boy, a goal scorer. He's good defensively, good size, plays on the cycle, certainly could play in your top 6. He'd be the other guy, but again, the money's tough there.
Yeah, I know Gregor's been high on Beck Malenstein. I don't hate the idea of Nick Dowd. I think I'm going to hate the price he ultimately gets traded for. I like Anthony Mantha. If Washington kept half of Joel Edmondson and he was your 8th D-man, I mean, I don't think you could trust him every day, but plug him in if you need him when you're down 2 guys and that inevitably get hurt. And then Frank today brought up the idea of Charlie Lindgren, who's got 1 more year at $1.1 million as well. And it's like, man, you could pick up a lot of pieces from Washington if you wanted to shell out enough assets.
Yeah, and I mean, Lindgren's an interesting piece, right? Like he's, I'm less enthusiastic about the backup goalie piece. But again, it's hard to argue with the history, right? You look at some of the cup runs that other teams have made. There's backup goalies are playing games, so. If you're set on Pickard, that's a bit of a roll of the dice. The team isn't. I mean, I guess you maybe make the argument that if you solve the defense a little bit, shore it up a little bit, maybe the argument is that Pickard plays in a game that's a little more low event. Yeah, I don't know where I am with Pickard. I think I would be looking for some piece there, but in terms of its ranking, it would be below the second right defenseman and some sort of a forward, an impact forward.
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page with that. Last one, because it came in from the listeners on YouTube. Lane Peterson as an upgrade on Derek Ryan. Is he?
No. I mean, I really like Lane Peterson, but he's a 4A guy, right? He's a tweener. He offensively, there's no question. He can score. He can certainly probably score at the NHL level. He is not robust. You say that politely. And in your bottom 6, you're going to need to be that. He's okay at faceoffs. He's not a terror by any stretch, but he's okay. I just think, you're running into the issue of a guy who in another role would be a perfect NHL fit for what the Oilers need. He just probably doesn't check all of the boxes. I don't think Derek Ryan is any great stretch at 5-on-5. He wins faceoffs, which is wonderful, and he PKs. You probably need to improve on him, but it's probably not Lane Peterson.
All right, Bruce Curlock, as always, man, appreciate the time. These are some of my favorite chats. Thanks for doing this.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.